All right. Well, speaking of Nostradamus here, my prediction is that Josh has the first album we're going to cover tonight.
you you are correct. It's Khalees
Nice.
and her album Kaleidoscope, released December 7th, 1999. Matt, what are the stats?
Kaleidoscope by Khalees comes in at number 2,876 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 301 in 1999, number 18,036 of all time. It's Khalees' third highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, behind 2010's Flesh Tone and 2014's Food. And it's, even though it's the lowest ranked tonight, it's the only album that Rolling Stone ranked at number 391 there. And Khalees is ranked number 3,545 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
All right, she was born Khalees Rogers in Manhattan, New York City in 1979. This is our first time covering her, and this is her first album. She has 6 studio albums in total, with the most recent being in 2014. She's still technically active, but no new albums recently. Genres are R&B primarily and pop. Although she has said in interviews that she never considered herself an R&B artist, she felt like that was just a label that any like young black artist would get labeled with if they were not like rapping, which I think she has a point. Influences for this album, she cited Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, and Dinah Washington. Similar artists would be Lizzo, Tiana Taylor, Erykah Badu, Janelle Monáe, or Solange. Her most famous song is Milkshake, which reached number 3 on the Hot 100 in 2003. And her 2006 album, Khalees, was here, reached 10 on the Billboard 200. Some fun facts about her. Her first name's a portmanteau of her father, Kenneth, and her mother, Evilise. And this album did not do well commercially, but did well critically. And it turns out, like, more often than not, she was much more successful in the UK than in the US. They often had her songs in the top 10 like hits, and she just sold better over there and everything. As a child, she sang in the church choir and played piano, violin, saxophone. Her first professional work was backing vocals on the Gravediggers song Fairy Tales in 1997. Now, Gravediggers was kind of a super group. I had to look them up. And do you guys know any of the members of Gravediggers?
Ugh,
I do not.
I feel it's Southern, right?
No.
No. Okay.
No, it's a group with RZA and Prince Paul and Prince Too Poetic and Fruquan. So they all went by different aliases. So like RZA was known as Prince Rakim, and then Prince Paul was known as The Undertaker. And they were Gravediggers was kind of like a hardcore like hip hop gangster rap with like horrorcore elements to it. So that's that. And then a couple of months before this album was released, her first big hit was appearing on the ODB song Got Your Money. She sang the hook on that. If you guys will recall that song, that's her singing. Khalees had some kind of negative things to say about her experiences being a recording artist and also working with Pharrell and the Neptunes. She made no money from the sales of her first 2 albums while being on Virgin Records. She said that she was blatantly lied and tricked to by the production team with whom she had signed at the age of 19. She said also Pharrell was credited as a songwriter on songs of hers that he had not written. And that leads me to say that this album is produced by the Neptunes. And from 2006 to 2010, she trained part-time as a saucier and graduated from Le Cordon Bleu, and has a sauce line that went on sale to the public in 2015 under the name Bounty in Full. She also has a cookbook called My Life on a Plate. And she did marry Nas in 2003, but divorced him in 2010. And she described her relationship with Nas as physically and mentally abusive, and credited the birth of her child as a factor in deciding to end the marriage. And I checked on her official site, which she has, including the sauce stuff and like little YouTube videos about making sauces, but she does not have any upcoming tour dates. So she's still active, but kind of in the background, keeping a low profile. So I had not heard this album I think I knew Khalees just from singles and Milkshake later on in the early 2000s. Let's start with John. What did you think of Kaleidoscope?
Yeah, it's been a long, long time since I listened to this album, and I knew I was kind of clocking, okay, where are we at in Khalees's career? I'm like, this has to be her debut. And I was trying to think what she had been on, and I said, was this before or after the ODB song? I knew it was before Milkshake because that was later. Boy, is this album a little bit ahead of its time, isn't it? This album sounds like it could have been released in much later in the 2000s, even 2010s. A lot of the artists you mentioned, like Solange and Janelle Monáe, pop out immediately as reference points that come later. I would say SZA as well is another act I thought of immediately in terms of the sound. I want to start by saying I didn't just like empty out every African American female singer I knew, right? Like I don't see the Erykah Badu lane as much on this one, I'd say. I kind of know why they might say it, but I don't see it as much on this. So I just think that idea of sort of being an omnivore in your musical tastes and coming at non-traditional hooks and sort of like an artistic, like an arty approach, I'd say, to R&B or pop music is my takeaway of what the sound is here. There's non-traditional hooks. I think there were songs that I was like, wow, I haven't heard that song in forever, and I forgot how good it was. Like, Caught Out There is a song I'm like, boy, I haven't heard that song in a long time. But as soon as it got to it, I said, oh, this is the I hate you so much right now. And I was like, yeah, which is a song I always loved. I just think it's such an interesting transition of the different song. It's so smooth and it's so harsh as the dropout. It does sound though like an NERD song. And definitely you could tell immediately as you start hearing these beats, I'm like, well, yep, this is a Neptunes album because these beats are quintessentially Neptunes beats. And it works perfectly with Khalees's voice. But other standouts, I love the song Mafia. I love the song Ghetto Children. And sure enough, I didn't even realize it. I thought I was going to say just Pharrell, but it is credited to NERD on that. So there you go. They chose that as well. Roller Rink was another song later that I really enjoyed, about sort of like going to the roller rink and skating it off when you're not feeling good. It definitely feels biographical, like love relationships that Khalees is having, as well as sort of processing the good times and the bad times. So there was a very much of an autobiographical spin to all of these songs. Not just she was singing about a generic love song. It definitely felt like torn out pages of a diary to some degree. And was she 20 when this album came out, I think?
Yeah, like
if I remember correctly. 19, 20 years old. Yeah, so she was very young when this album came out. So there is an authority to what she's singing about here. In some ways too, even though it's more polished, she is doing for R&B a little bit like what Fiona Apple was doing in the album we covered last week. We're taking different angles to sort of a familiar way of doing music. In this case, I think, pop or R&B, just like Fiona Apple was doing, singer-songwriter, sort of jazzy female empowerment artist, but she came at it in ways that surprise you, right? And keeps you on your toes throughout the album. And that was really my takeaway of this album. Was I didn't think there was a bad song on this album. It flew by, even though it was an hour long, and it never bored me any of the times that I listened to it. And there's a lot of, like I mentioned 4 of them, but there's bona fide great tracks, and she is kind of a missed opportunity for being bigger, I feel like. But then again, I think about all the reference points that I mentioned, like Solange and Janelle Monáe, and you would know those names, but outside of, if you go searching for them, right, or maybe a little bit of like modern R&B stations, there isn't like a lane as much where this type of music explodes, right? I guess SZA, of all the people I mentioned, is probably the closest to it. But even you wonder if she's going to have the same type of career that Khalees has, because she has, 2 massive songs, especially one huge one, Kill Bill, right? Just like Khalees has Milkshake, right? Like songs that sort of transcend over. But I wonder if that isn't kind of the lane. Lizzo's an interesting one. That's another good reference point, for sure. But whereas Lizzo is sort of like vamping it up a little bit, I feel like this is much more slice of life, and that's where I think there is the overlap with what Fiona Apple is doing, albeit in a completely different sort of musical style. So I really enjoyed this album. I thought it had high replayability. It also passed the biggest test for me, which is I want to check out more of her albums, especially the 2010 and 14 albums, which I will admit I am not familiar with. But seeing as those were ranked as higher, right, by best ever albums, I'm very curious to hear what's on those, because I really enjoyed this album. So I'm not going to say it's a gem, because I knew about it and I knew it was going to be good, but boy, it really is an album that I liked. So comfortable thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
I didn't know her name. I told Sherry what we were covering this week, and she's like, "Oh, the milkshake, the girl." I'm like, "Oh, that song, I know that." I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I guess I knew a Kelis song, even though I didn't know it was by her. Yeah, I enjoyed this one too. I liked a number of things about it. I think it's just first and foremost just an interesting album that takes you in a couple of different directions, and it's not like a samey record, right? So for a first-time listen to an album in a genre that's typically not something my forte, I appreciate that, right? Because I think that's probably where the sameness is becomes the most apparent, is a genre that I'm not as familiar with, an album I'm just not familiar with it, and then it just kind of all blends together. So that's it becomes a non-interesting listen. This was definitely not that. This was an interesting listen for me, and a couple things stand out. Certainly the production, right?
Yep.
The Neptunes are here again, right? And I wonder how many more stories. We're certainly going to hear a lot more from them.
Yes.
But also, are we going to be hearing more stories about Pharrell not getting, ripping somebody off, or not doing?
Only his partner.
Even to the point, yeah, I was going to say, even to the point where even the two of them were fighting over that. So,
Oh, Matt, wait till you get into the Drake Pharrell feud. Wait till we get to that end of things.
Doesn't Drake feud with everybody? He seems
nearly 15-year feud of Drake and Pharrell. Just get on the ride. You're going to enjoy all of that, Matt. Mm-hmm.
I just, as a side note, all these feuds that kind of come out, I'm like, how much is this as a feud, and how much is this just trying to get front page, selling albums and whatever? But I don't know. Drake's always in a feud, and then I see him I don't know. So I always Saturday Night Live when I've seen him. I'm like, man, this guy's pretty charismatic, and it seems like a good guy. But apparently, I don't know, he likes to troll or whatever. But anyway. This record I did enjoy. I pretty much liked every song. I think the only song on here that what left me a little was Mars, and that's just because of the way that there was something up that the chorus just kind of didn't really do a whole lot for me. But generally speaking, everything else did. I thought it ended pretty well too. I really enjoy. I think the I Want Your Love, No Turning Back, Roller Rink, those 3, 10, 11, and 12. Tracks were some of my favorites. I just thought that they had some of the best beats. I thought that they were some of the catchiest. So I like it. Again, were an album for me where they back end some of my favorite songs. I really do like that. And it starts off strong too. I was laughing when Mafia came on, which has got a cool, there's definitely a cool jazzy element to this. And it's it's a cool sounding record. And a lot of those artists that you've cited, it's I could see this falling in line with that. But when Mafia came up and it said featuring Marquita, and I was like, the Toy Soldiers girl, and I was like, oh wait, that's Martika. Okay, so it took me 10 seconds to remember that was not actually the case. So I thought that was kind of funny.
More importantly, the Toy Soldiers, but she was also on Kids Incorporated, top tier '80s show that my sister and I watched every day.
Yep, with Alanis, right? Was it? No, Alanis was on You Can't Do
No,
That Television.
Fergie,
right? Yes, yep.
Among others, Jennifer Love Hewitt was on that. Others too, but I won't get into that. But there were a lot, shockingly large amount of people in Kids Incorporated.
I will throw out another artist, and it's only for probably one song, but I thought Suspended sounded kind of like an Amy Winehouse type song. Kind of like the more ballady, kind of smoky, type sound there. But yeah, overall, really, really good variety, great beats. I liked her voice quite a bit.
Yep.
And so yeah, it didn't really. It wasn't a slog to get through. I listened to it probably 3 times, and I don't know if I liked it better. I liked it probably just as much, but it was like just that speaks to like how kind of accessible this is right off the bat. And it's not accessible in like a low hanging fruit kind of way. It's like accessible and like in a smart, like, just a well crafted overall album in terms of production, songwriting, vocals, all that stuff. So yeah, thumbs up. I enjoyed it.
I don't think you dislike R&B anymore, Matt. I think we've finally gotten you there.
No, I mean this is a more interesting. Yeah, I will say this though. Wouldn't you agree? The last song, which is probably the most traditional, maybe ballad R&B, that was okay. that was a song that I could see myself listening to this album again and then maybe stopping. Not because it's not the genre that I like, but there are certain things like this. Certainly the Erykah Badu. I think that kind of the neo soul kind of vibe. Is something that I'm definitely like I'm more here for, I would say.
Yeah, I'm gonna bang the drum for this album as well. I didn't know it at all and really enjoyed it. Unlike you, Matt, I think it did get better for me the more I listened to it. I think that kind of expanded and broadened in a way that I appreciated it more. The Neptune's production is a big hit. I like how she kind of it's not just R&B, but it's also kind of like dabbling in like soul and like funk and disco and kind of like pop as well, and like this kind of whole almost like a 70s vibe, maybe a little sprinkling of like psychedelia as well. Even on something like just singing cut out there, like yelling that chorus is kind of like different and unique.
Yeah, she hates that guy.
Yeah, I like she's got a good way with lyrics. I think the songs are constructed really well, and I found myself more often than not like ending up singing along to a lot of the songs, especially like John mentioned Roller Rink. Like I kept singing that song. Like I liked the chorus on Mars. It was funny that you didn't, Matt. Game Show I thought was pretty. I mean, this album is strong overall. Like every song has something that I liked about it for the most part. You said it, John, like there's definitely a Neptune. You can tell the Neptune's production. Game Show has a beat that's similar to Justin Timberlake's song Senorita. I kept like thinking of that with whatever the little keyboard part of that is. Ghetto Children has a catchy chorus that harkens back to the 70s as well. No Turning Back, that's a later track that I really liked as well. You both said it. She has a really good voice. I don't know. There's just a creativity to this album that I really appreciate. It doesn't sound like other R&B stuff that we've listened to in the late 90s. I think John said it was kind of ahead of its time, and I would agree. I think it's going places that other artists eventually get to, but she was just there first, and it's a shame that it didn't sell well. I think critics were right in this regard, and that it's a good album, and I'm gonna start. If a music conversation ever comes up for me outside of this podcast, I will tell people to check this album out as a recent listen. So yeah, thumbs up for me too. I really like this one.
You're going to have to start some new music-related conversations, Josh. That's your homework for the rest of it. You could start by saying, are you familiar with the idea of a podcast? Do you like music? Because I do a music podcast. So, world-renowned music amateur podcast.
Yeah, the world's #1 amateur podcast.
Josh, what songs would you have picked or recommend? What are your top choices?
Yeah, I like Caught Out There's kind of the big quote unquote big single. I would go with that. I like Mafia a lot, and
that's the two I picked for Spotify.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Roller Rink too. Let's do that as a third.
You picked my favorite three, Josh. So you and I are of the same minds.
Nice.
So perfect. Yeah, but it's a really good album. Check it out if you're not familiar.